There's a magnetism that runs our lives, that runs all of life, that surrounds the earth as it spins through space, and we are surrounded by these fields. I was taught as a kid from my father that the unseen world, the invisible world, is far more important than the visible world, and that's what comes through in all these paintings. Magnetic Fields is a survey show of 50 years of my work, curated by Robin Clark. The title is hers. She felt in surveying the work that there was an energy running throughout the narrative, throughout all the work, and boom, it was magnetic fields. It was absolutely perfect. The museum center, my memoir called Walking Through Walls, which deals with my childhood of growing up with a father who suddenly discovered he could talk to the dead and heal sick people. So by the time I was 14, there were seances, miraculous healings, spirit talk in my house. When Robin and I were going through the work, we saw that there were distinct bodies of work that corresponded to timelines in my life. So the exhibition is not strictly chronological, and instead it's more thematic. I moved to New York in 1975, and by 1976 I found an abandoned loft on the Bowery, and I started to draw. I started to do these sort of monolithic drawings. By 1977, Douglas Crimp, curator of the picture show, was organizing this exhibition of artists that were using found imagery, photography, to create a new language. In some ways, I think all of us in the pictures show were anticipating the digital age, that suddenly pictures were going to become malleable. They weren't just fixed. And I think that's what all of us were looking at, that there's something behind the curtain with these images. As a kid, I would look at books on Egyptian art, hieroglyphs, and I was fascinated by this mysterious language. It made me think, how can I do some of that in my own work? I wanted that sense of mystery. I also wanted that sense of communication. My goal had always been to make paintings that were drawings and drawings that were paintings. So I wanted to create a pictorial language from modern times. The black paintings came out of my travels at the time in India, Egypt, Burma, where I was looking at these ancient temples and these ancient caves that were magnificent. You don't know how they did it. There was no light. You're lost in the utter darkness. And with a flashlight or a torch, suddenly you see these Technicolor images of Buddha and Buddha's travels, and you just think, wow, that had a huge effect on me. And so these paintings are really about trying to portray this knowledge or information that came out of the darkness. After doing the black paintings, I needed to breathe a little bit more because those black paintings are very dense. It's a very hermetic experience. Suddenly, I started doing these sort of luscious jewel tone colored paintings that were using imagery that was much more contemporary. The dishwasher, women in the kitchen, images of Khrushchev or Eisenhower on television. And these colors made it a little bit more pop, and the drawing was much more rigorous, much cleaner. There was no erasure, there was no residue of previous imagery. They were pristine in their making. In the late 90s, I joined a martial arts dojo in New York that specialized in Zen training. The training went on for 25 years, and in that time, you're always refining your technique, you're refining your spirit as well. In the fighting arts, you have to hit your target. So I thought, well, what in my painting is extraneous? I wanted to just focus in. At the same time, I was going to a lot of mediums and psychics. The language in which they spoke was always pictorial. So the spirits were communicating through imagery. Because of my Zen training and my father's training, I started having experiences with, I guess, invisible ideas, invisible beings. And these paintings were trying to memorialize that, to try and show what it was like to get these very strange images that in some ways were very discordant, but had very profound meaning to them. And that became the white paintings. I lived in New York for 30 years, and now I just commute between New York and Miami. But being here gave me a certain freedom. I found these pastels, and they were just compressed pure pigment, and I started drawing with them. The colors very, very intense, but also they were malleable. You could erase them, you could work with them in a more painterly way. In the 80s, I was traveling through India and I went to Nepal, and I was watching the monks create these little paintings called tankas. They put a kind of spiritual energy into the painting so the viewer will get a blessing, or will have good luck, or will have good fortune. The paintings are energetically alive and communicating with the viewer. That's what I wanted. I didn't want to create just visual entertainment. I wanted a painting that was living and breathing and actually affect someone's life. Paintings that just emanated energy, and I felt that I had finally done that. In Zen and in the martial arts, there's this idea called Renma, which means basically polishing. You, your soul, your technique, your life are like a lump of coal, and through Renma, or polishing, you keep polishing and refining until it becomes like a glistening diamond. And I guess at this point, what I really want is more Renma. I want the work to be more alive, to be more impactful to people, to communicate with them in a more powerful way.